I think we can begin. GM everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome to this week's session of Market Movers. I am Pedro, the senior blockchain analyst here at DappRadar, and I am joined today by Boris Ribo, part of our research team. How are you doing today, Boris?
Hello, Pedro. Always glad to be here.
Good to have you. Good. So today we're going to walk you through the most important trends and events that happened during the first 3 months of 2022. Man, time flies, like already April, Easter in less than 2 weeks. But yeah, anyway, before we start, I want to remind everyone here that, as always, we'll be recording the session so you can listen to this or any of our previous shows on DappRadar's YouTube channel. And also important, for today's event, we will be giving away some POPs, which are basically NFT attendance badges. Cornelia, here in the audience, will share a link during this session so you can claim your POP. So please stay tuned. And finally, a last minute reminder. Next Tuesday at 15-hour UK time, Ian will moderate DappRadar first community call, where Skirmantas and Dragos, DappRadar's co-founders, and Nick Rennie, the head of product, will talk about important updates for our community, including the results of our latest voting on the unclaimed radar, product updates that include the new pro features and the upcoming release of the mobile app, and the first official introduction to the contribute to earn model. So you definitely do not want to miss this. Okay, so jumping straight into the action. Q1, of course, the biggest event was the war in Ukraine. Unfortunate event. But that's definitely disrupted the capital markets, and cryptocurrencies were not the exception. So, Boris, how did the war in Ukraine affected the industry from a usage perspective? The trends, do we see some results from the war in Ukraine?
Oh, absolutely. Well, talking from the macroeconomic perspective, naturally, this year started very difficult. We were just seeing the first rays of sunshine coming out from COVID, and both the capital markets and, by extension, the cryptocurrency markets have been on the upside. Unfortunately, with the beginning of the war in February, we've seen a drastic hit along all the markets. We've seen further um, severe intrusion in the trading volumes, and as such, we also suffered a significant down plunge in all of established cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin being chief among them, we dropped down to the 30s and are slowly climbing back out of them.
Yeah, I think it's natural. Like, well, for me personally, it was very difficult to even concentrate at that time. So the attention was derailed from the industry, and I think we see a plunge in the number of unique active wallets connected to the industry. Actually, starting on February 24, which was the day Russia invaded. But yeah, I think we're slowly recovering, as you said, in terms of price. The cryptos we're getting back, are down again. But yeah, they're way high than what we saw at the end of February. And yeah, NFTs, DeFi, and games are slowly gaining traction again. So yeah, it's good to see that we're getting stronger and back on track. And also one important topic I think that happened in the Q1 was how the community and also from this event we learned that how the Web3 community can get together very quickly. We saw organizations like Ukraine DAO raising funds to help people, which is good. And something that we also saw last week, or sorry, yesterday, when several organizations, including Binance and Animoca brands, joined together and raised 150 million for the lost funds of the running hack that was exploited last week. So security is going to be a topic, isn't it, Boris?
Yeah. The biggest issue that happened is that during the Q1 we had 1.2 billion with a B stolen. According to a REC database, who are the leaders in archiving and quantifying all the exploits, leaks, and otherwise any malfeasance that happens in the crypto markets. And according to them, and we had 35% of all the money stolen ever in the crypto scene has been stolen in the first quarter alone. That's
Wow.
not a very heartening statistic. The chief among them, as you just mentioned, was the Ronin, which happened quite recently on the 29th of March,
Mhm.
which stole 615.5 million, which was an exploit of the Ronin bridge to Ethereum. We've seen furthermore also in February, also as the Solana wormhole, which was another popular bridge, was exploited for 326 million. Um, and this kind of begs the question, I mean, which Vitalik Buterin highlighted, that do we actually need uh, these complicated cross-chain solutions and maybe just create one single multi-chain system, since these hacks are becoming more audacious and more damaging with every coming month?
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting to see that hackers are actually targeting bridges. And for people in the audience that do not understand fully the bridges, bridges are platforms that allow you to transfer or bridge a cryptocurrency from one network to another. Like you mentioned, Solana, for example, if I want to start using and getting yields on Solana, maybe I want to bridge my Ethereum to Solana to get the version. So we are not literally transferring the token. What is happening in bridges is that I lock my ETH in the Ethereum network, and the bridge mint a new version of this Ethereum token on Solana. But the assets are locked in Ethereum. That is what really happening. We are only creating a replica of these tokens in the other network. So you can use it on DeFi or any or lending platforms or whatever. But this is what is really happening. So in the end, those tokens are locked in smart contracts. And these smart contracts, sometimes, in the case of running, for example, it needed only three of the five multi-signatures to release the tokens. And yeah, basically, it was a reverse engineering method that the hackers exploited. And basically, they could access the private seeds of the three multi-sigs required to unlock the tokens. And that is why they were exploited. And something kind of similar also happening in February in Solana, as you mentioned. So it's going to be important to keep the security matters in our loop. It's going to be increasingly important. Also, well, on one hand, for projects to keep gathering more information on how to make their platform secure, but also from our point of view, like from the user's perspective, also try to educate yourself. Like, do not share your seed phrase, use cold storage wallets, and so on. I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago or last month, how to make your NFT secure. So just following good practices is going to be important, as security and regulations are going to be a topic that we are going to talk about throughout the entire year.
Also, just to mention, although we are starting on a somber mood, I have to say that this is, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing outside of the ordinary, because we're still a nascent industry. We're still taking our baby steps and trying to mature and grow into our own. And there's, unfortunately, there's going to be very painful and expensive mistakes along the way. If we look at the traditional industry, they had the very same thing. When the banks were there, they were constantly getting robbed, and the whole Wild West movie industry was based about breaking banks and whatnot. Some of the
Yeah.
biggest stories were about breaking banks and falsifying bank information and impersonating higher managers. It's a story as old as time. So, unfortunately, this is the normality, that people would constantly try to uh, malign the way into money, and is something that will just, with time, will find better and more secure ways of safeguarding our assets. But this is just a stepping stone in our long road of evolution.
Yeah, actually, the Wild West comparison is very fair. Like, we feel like that actually in the industry. Yeah, I can feel it. Um, cool. So yeah, security is going to be a topic that we are going to talk about the entire year. Like, make no mistake about it. But
Speaking of
also,
security, just to say, we are going to be sharing passwords for the popes, aren't we?
yeah, Cornelia is going to share a link at some point during the event. So yeah, stay tuned for that uh, Pope link. Um, cool. Yeah. Besides security, what we also see in Q1 that it's an important trend worth highlighting before jumping into deep dive on the categories of NFTs, DeFi, and games. One thing that caught our attention is how the presence of native Web3 brands is increasing in the space. Last year, we saw how traditional brands like Adidas and Nike start collaborating with Web3 projects. Adidas, of course, entered the sandbox in and also joined Bored Apes and Punks Comics in what might become one of the most exciting projects that we are going to see in that virtual world in Sandbox. And also Nike acquired Artifact, the brand behind the team behind CloneX and other interesting sneaker collections. And we are seeing how these teams are teaming, well, these brands are teaming together and are actually forming interesting collaborations. And what we saw in Q1 is Yuga Labs. Yuga Labs being well raised up 450 million investment led by Anderson and Horowitz, but also involving Animoca brands. So I think Yuga Labs it's going to become one of the most prominent Web3 teams, even after acquiring the IP for the CryptoPunks on Meeb or on Meebits. They hold around 43% of the whole NFT market cap for the top 100 Ethereum collections. But it's impressive to see how they are holding the lion's share of the NFT market collectibles. Anything you want to add on that regard?
Well, a bit of a joke, but thank God our industry is not as heavily regulated, because there are certainly, if this were the capital markets industry, surely there would be some antitrust violations with owning this much of the NFT market.
Yeah, it feels like a monopoly.
Mm.
Yeah, but I mean, Bored Apes, Mutant Apes, and CryptoPunks account around for one third of the value of NFTs. So yeah, it's quite unfair, but at the same time, it's promising to see what do they do with such power fighters. Sorry, and also interesting that they are going to release in the upcoming months Other Side, which is going to be their metaverse project, and it is signaling that it's going to be a very interoperable metaverse project that will also include collaboration with other interesting NFT collections like the World of Women, Cool Cats, Cryptotes, and others. So let's see what Yuga Labs has under the sleeves, and let's try to get involved in that project. I think it's going to be interesting. Like they have proved that they're one of the leading teams in the space, so getting exposure to that metaverse project may bring good results in the long run. Okay, cool. So at a high level, yeah, security and the increasing presence of Web3 brands are noticeably are notice events. But what about NFTs? What's happening on the NFT space, Boris?
They are here to stay.
I
That's
like it.
that's the short of it. Um, so far, the market is undergoing a maturity phase. March, we have so far amassed 31.4 billion trades. Um, 62 of which have been on LuxRare, and as we all know, LuxRare in its initial stages, there's been a lot of wash trading, which was essentially uh, the type of rewards that the platform issued just encourage people to trade amongst themselves without actually generating any real transfer of value, where the beneficiaries of the actual NFTs stayed the same and just created artificial volumes, which essentially highly inflated a lot of the trading that happened in the first quarter, specifically in January, February, and somewhat in March. But since then, well, if I can call it exploit, that I say a kink in the system hasn't since then has been alleviated, and we see a drastic reduction in the inorganic activity. So the trading looks rare was 11 billion in January, then dropped to 7 billion, and March has been 2 billion. So we see a progressive reduction there, and overall, the marketplace is beginning to look like many other ones. Um, overall,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry,
Sorry.
go.
Go. No. 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 Go. Go.
Um,
Finish it.
yeah. Overall, the market has been great. Of course, the leader is Ethereum, but um, NFT trading has significantly increased on other chains. Avalanche had a 582% increase. Likewise, Solana and Polygon increased by 34% quarter over quarter. And overall, this has been a good quarter. Naturally, we've been slightly decreased from the previous one, so from end of 2021 going into 2022, which is understandable considering that the heights to which the industry soared last year has been an unprecedented growth. But even excluding that, year over year, the Ethereum trade volume has grown by 450%, and the overall trading in NFTs from last year to this year, March year over year, has grown by 900%. So we are growing. It's just it's not always a straight line. There will be periods where the industry will be consolidating, where the wheat will be separated from the chaff, and there are times when we'll have unprecedented growth.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, you pointed out like NFTs are here to stay, and why? Because the mainstream media is calling like NFTs are dead just because the volumes are down. But if you zoom out, if you look into perspective, what has happened during the last 12 months, as you said, like it's almost a 1,000% growth in terms of volume, and it's fair. Like it was very difficult to keep the pace. Like in January we saw record volumes. Even not considering Luxrare, just OpenSea and the other traditional marketplaces. The record volumes were set in Jan, so I think we reached it. It was not the peak because we are expecting to get even bigger in terms of volume, but it's also a cyclical as a cycle, as you said. Like it went to the peak, and then now probably we're seeing a consolidation phase, but it's not time to panic or anything similar. It's just a consolidation phase, and the volumes outside of Ethereum are actually also increasing, as you said, which is very very positive for the industry. We're getting less dependent on Ethereum. We're seeing Avalanche, Solana NFTs thriving really well in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, it's not time to panic, and NFTs are here to stay. Like there are going to be a myriad of use cases that we're going to see implemented in NFTs, like music, tickets, and once the metaverse really kicks in, I mean, NFTs are going to be anywhere, ubiquitous. So yeah, good stuff. What about DeFi? What's happening on the land of DeFi?
Um, Terra blends Bitcoin into 20 billion. So far, unfortunately, the DeFi has been hit the hardest, and overall, the total volume locked and the unique active wallets has been falling. Not everywhere and not every system has been built the same way. Some have increased and some have decreased, which I'm going to mention in the uh, following few minutes. But just generally, DeFi unfortunately has not had a good quarter this first quarter of 2022. So in the end of March, we had an estimated 214 billion total value locked across all chains, which is unfortunately 8.4, so rounded down to 8% lower than the previous quarter. Um, and overall, there's been a progression of them decreasing quarter over quarter. From the blockchain perspective, we had the Cosmos-based, as I previously mentioned, blockchain Terra. So the most significant increase. It had secured 23 billion at the end of March, which is an increase of 68% from the previous quarter of 2021. It's dominant due to its effective stablecoin ecosystem and has plenty of DeFi protocols like Anchor and that offer competitive yields compared to other ones. Terra holds to date 10% of the industry's TVL and is pretty much the second most dominant market behind Ethereum. That, if memory serves me right, currently holds 60% of the total TVL dominance. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
actually, Terra is yeah, it's been quite some time that we have highlighted that Terra is slowly becoming this powerhouse of DeFi, and that place belongs to Binance. I mean, if you look only like 4 months ago or 3 months ago, it was Binance the clear runner up to Ethereum's dominance in DeFi land. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, like Terra has one of the most popular stable coins, the UST, and Anchor protocol is well as good as it gets for a DeFi dApp. So the combination of these factors have propelled Terra quite below the average of what we see in other blockchains for DeFi, and Terra was also still in headlines because Dog One, Terra's one of Terra's founders, has made his mission to collateralize Terra, basically, well, the UST with Bitcoin. So basically, Terra is going to be backed up by Bitcoin. He has been purchasing a lot of Bitcoin recently to back it up, its stablecoin, which can backfire in the midterm, let's say, in the long run. But it's definitely an interesting proposition, and it's interesting to see how the market reacts to this Terra
that's
news.
that's very interesting. I mean, sorry, just to draw the macabre parallel, but we've seen very similar thing happen when Russia's been and India and China have been very aggressively buying gold in the last decade as a safe haven for their assets and to retain the price of their own currencies. So if we see a similar movement, I'm not saying that Terra is going to start, aggressively expanding into other territories, but the fact that they're using Bitcoin as a pseudo gold to collateralize
Exactly.
all their assets. The only question is that Bitcoin, as much as I hate to say it, but it's not as stable as gold is. Generally, it's slightly, or not slightly, it's significantly more volatile than the price of gold. So I'm interested in what would happen if, because the price of stable coins and Bitcoin is closely correlated. How would they hedge against the dropping value of Bitcoin, especially when people would start demanding to have their assets, or potentially people would start using arbitrage of buying Bitcoin then, and why do I keep calling it Bitcoin? Bitcoin then, and then selling it when it's higher.
I mean, it's a fair question, and it's an interesting topic, one that requires a lengthy answer to explain how the Terra ecosystem works. Um, but it's a bet, basically a bet that Dog Wani is doing in his ecosystem. Um, I personally think it's interesting, although as you said, like backing up your assets with a volatile asset. I mean, it's a risky move in my opinion, but also it is showing that the trust as Bitcoin as a safe asset, as an asset that may become a stabilizer, well, are more stable in terms of price in the upcoming months. But I mean, one thing that is very characteristic of cryptocurrencies is their volatility. So definitely it's going to be interesting to monitor how Terra reacts, and because it's not going to be something that we will see in the next months, it's something that we will see in the next years when the DeFi market is more mature, when we see real adoption getting in. I don't know how it might look if the Bitcoin price plunges. How can the USD maintain its algorithmic peg to the dollar? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But I think there's something else happening outside of Terra.
I just wanted to say that this is my subjective opinion, but probably if they're going to be buying Bitcoin as a collateral, there is no better, cyclically speaking, no better time than now. I mean, we are in the early 40s of Bitcoin. We've recovered quite significantly since the initial plunge when the war happened, and since the beginning of this quarter. So I think we're going to be on the up and up for at least the foreseeable year, hopefully.
Not financial advice, obviously,
Yeah,
right?
but yeah, not financial advice, but that's just my own speculative opinion.
Okay, cool. Yeah, interesting. I mean, yeah, I think I don't know if we're going to see an immediate price spike, but yeah, I'm confident that it will recover. Some people are calling for Bitcoin to reach $200,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think it will at least regain its values around 65 or even nearing 80. But again, not financial advice, just also my opinion. What happened outside of Terra, Boris? What other chains are we seeing like in DeFi? We're seeing that also Phantom, something interesting happening in Phantom, right?
Yeah, I was about to. I know I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, Phantom has been a very promising DeFi blockchain, and well, not blockchain, sorry, they are a layer one network that was gaining a lot of ground in the TVL race, and they closed with 6.6 billion TVL close, which is 42 increase since the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's I guess many people already know this, but Andre Cronje, who has been uh, in the DeFi space for I don't know if I should call it a mastermind, but definitely a very strong driving force. He's pretty much developed Cream. He developed Sushi Swap. He essentially pioneered a lot of
Yearn.
the Urine, sorry. He pioneered a lot of the protocols that we enjoy today. And he already quit once in 2020, but he quickly came back on. And apparently, what at least the notification that he left on his Twitter, this is not a knee jerk reaction like it was last time. This has been a long time coming, and he's not going to be back. He unfortunately cited the toxic nature of the community, and he just unfortunately doesn't want to do anything. So this,
Yeah,
he's
I
leaving leaves a big void.
Yeah, I would say like Andre Cronje is probably one of the fathers of DeFi. I could put it as simply as that, like one of the fathers of DeFi. He's very important, and he was leading Phantom like for quite some time. We see its value really increase towards the end of Q4, and it became a household name for DeFi, and it was actually challenging Solana, Avalanche, and Binance for the third place in our DeFi TVL rankings. However, it's very clear that once Cronje announced his resign, the TVL locked in Phantom decreased brutally. Like, I don't know, do you have numbers of how much the TVL decreased in March? Because in February it was increasing, right? Compared
Yeah.
to the previous quarter, you said it gained like 40%, which is a very nice figure. But it would be even higher if not for the Cronje exit. Because do you have numbers how much it decreased in March?
Yeah, it's essentially we've seen a classic roller coaster ride where we ascended the mountain, it decreased by 42%, and then right at the peak, at the end of February, early March, when Andre Cronje tendered his quote unquote resignation, we dropped back down to 42%, and
Okay.
so I would say a net loss overall, that we increased by 42%, then we decreased by 41%, and the trend so far is bearish. So we'll see if somebody will take up the mantle, but whoever it is, they will have some very big shoes to fill.
Definitely, yeah, definitely big shoes to fill. And overall, well, yeah, the DeFi space looks more mature. Like, we're slowly seeing how dApps and are maturing, but also like people are starting also to learning how to use DeFi, which is good. But yeah, okay. So how about we stop for a moment and ask our audience if there are any questions or comments about any of the topics that we've covered, NFTs, DeFi, or security. If there are any questions, feel free to shout. In the meantime, Boris, what happened in the game space?
Games,
Anything you want to add?
games basically are the driving factor for a lot of the activity on uh, most chains. As far as dApps interaction go, games consistently take 52 point sorry yeah 50.5% of the total activity on chains, and leading among them is of course Axie Infinity, that has a what was it? They released the Origins
Mm-hmm.
season 2, and likewise Sandbox Alpha 2 has released a second season, attracting thousands of new users, and they're processing 35 live new experiences, showcasing the platform and its whole complete entertainment potential. Um, Likewise, we've seen a lot of venture capital pouring into blockchain games. We had 2.5 billion alone in the quarter. A lot of them been through Sky Mavis, sorry, that's kind of Animoca brands that
Mm.
are pretty much the Hong Kong studio that are the leaders when it comes to developing blockchain games and blockchain experiences. Um,
Yeah, Animoca is also one of these Web3 brands that we were talking about in the early stage, and their presence in the game category is just brutal.
I think
Um,
we mentioned them pretty much on every depths report that we had this year.
yeah, it's a good prediction. Yeah, I mean, they're not focusing on, let's say, on one type of games. They're actually expanding their portfolio, testing out different networks. Like, they have a big dent in Polygon. I mean, they are the owners of the sandbox, and they launched with Polygon Studios Arcade, which is also a play to earn mobile app. So, but they are also investing in other type of projects, and platforms. So it's very good for the industry, and they have become, yeah, quite the name for the investment, I could say. And what we see in the games category, yeah, I think it's positive, but also a reminder to people that the games category needs patience. Like, people probably think that, yeah, we're announcing a game and they want to see a game in 2 weeks or the next month, but this is something that takes time. Like, these are normal games that take years to develop, and they will only be integrated into blockchain. So it's a reminder, and also positive sign for the games that the top games are already established. Um, we don't see a drastic drop in the usage of the top games, despite the industry was down at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. These blockchain games were actually keeping their player base connected, so we didn't see a huge drop in the activity of games, and actually it's driving accounting for more than half of the industry's activity. So I think the game category is also flashing some very positive signs for the years to come, for the months to come, but also for the years to come. But all in all, like, yeah, it is one of the most important categories, and how the convergence with DeFi and NFTs is shaping up. It's also a positive sign for the DApp industry overall. Like, we are heading to the metaverse era where NFTs, games, and DeFi collide in one single space. So let's see how this evolves. Okay.
Personally, my interest, because we definitely like we cover three topics. We DeFi, NFTs, um, games, and whatnot. I hope that one day the industry is going to expand and create something new, that we have a fourth or perhaps even a fifth topic that we'll cover here in the near future, whatever it may be, whether it's uh, developments in different metaverses, which people interacted, what shops, possibly online marketplaces that happened within the metaverses. Who knows? Like this is what I'm personally looking forward to. There's a fourth type of topic that we will cover on these reports.
I mean, we have other categories, right? Like, the what we call high risk categories, or the gambling, or well, yeah, I mean, other social categories also are going to be interesting. Like, is there going to be a project that is going to be socially driven, like a social network for the blockchain, like similar to what well, Hive, the network where Splinterlands runs. It's it was popular because it started as a social blockchain network. So it's interesting to see, once the metaverse is running, like, more mature and with more users, can it become the point of origin for new social dApps? It's, yeah, actually it's an interesting point, but not sure we are going to see that on the short term, though. I think it's more something to bear in mind for the next year, probably, as also new use cases arise for NFTs and other type of games. But yeah, it's a good point.
So,
Okay,
any takers? Any questions? No.
I don't see any. So, any closing thoughts, Boris, before we close the space?
Uh, Myself personally, well, we did have a very hard quarter. We just went from one crisis into another. My hope is that the crises will be swiftly averted, and the next quarter will be on the upswing, and we'll have better things to look forward to, better, higher mountains to climb, and higher peaks to see. That's my hope for this quarter and the future quarters to come.
I like that poetry, but yeah, I mean, the most important thing is that next quarter that reviewing Q2. We're not talking about war anymore. That's the most important thing, I guess. But yeah, thanks everyone. I want to give a big thanks to you for being active in our community. Although we didn't have any questions today, but yeah, thanks anyway. Remember, each week at the same time, market movers discussing different crypto topics and the DappRadar Meet sessions where Ian talks with relevant projects in the industry in his AMA weekly sessions. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and social media channel on Twitter, Discord, and YouTube. And remember, next Tuesday, the first community call. Don't forget, 15 hours UK time and here on Discord. So that's all for today. Thanks again and have a great weekend ahead. That's all
Likewise.
for me.
All the
Thank you.
best to you and all the best to everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.